Welcome to a WANE 15 special presentation. Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana. Now here's your hosts, Pat Hoffman and Alyssa Ivinson.
Good evening. We're so glad you're joining us this Veterans Day as we honor those who served. I'm Alyssa Ivinson.
And I'm Pat Hoffman. In the next hour, you will hear stories about veterans from right here in Northeast Indiana and across the country.
They're all a reminder of how thankful we are for the men and women who so bravely serve our country.
Our first story starts close to home at the 122nd Fighter Wing. Major Jennifer Ruth Green's career path was altered by a chance meeting. Now she takes every chance she can get to have the same impact on the next generation.
Born into a military family, Jennifer Ruth Green doesn't back down from a challenge, even in high school.
When he shared about the Air Force Academy, he said, it's very difficult to get into, very few people do, and it's hard to graduate from there. And so I said, challenge accepted.
Accepting challenges was a way of life for the youngest of 6 with 4 older brothers.
It was good to grow up with brothers, toughened me up a lot.
That toughness was needed at the academy.
When I got there, I was excited, and then after 2 days of classes, I thought, whoa. They just really humbled me very quickly.
Her intent was not to be a pilot.
I was intending to be the Secretary of State. Condoleezza Rice had become Secretary of State, and I wanted to be an ambassador. That was my goal.
That goal changed after meeting Lieutenant Colonel Lee Archer of the famed Tuskegee Airmen. They were the first African-American pilots in the military.
He said, hey, Cadet Green, are you pilot qualified? And I'd just gone through the physical. I said, yes, sir. And he said, are you considering aviation? And I said, no, sir. And then he looked at me and he said, if you don't stand on our shoulders, who will? And I realized it was such a pressing quote, the weight and the responsibility that they had to take on, merely 60 years removed from slavery.
That quote stayed with her. Today, she's one of just 150 African-American female professional pilots.
I said, you know, I just feel really uncomfortable with people applauding that statistic. I want that statistic to be nullified to the point where it doesn't even matter anymore.
A colleague, Captain Chris Campbell, challenged her to change it.
We just kind of talked and he said, you know what, Jennifer Ruth? There's no point in blazing a trail if the trail doesn't become a road. And I said, that's exactly how I feel. If I don't bring people up behind me, if I don't make it easier for them to come along, then it's worthless.
And Major Green has dedicated her life to doing just that. Last year, she founded the nonprofit organization Mission Arrow Pipeline to empower kids. Look for this story on WANE.com to find out more about that. And she's not done blazing trails. In January, she will take over the Cyber Operations Flight, becoming the first African-American woman to take over a command position at the 122nd Fighter Wing.
An inspiration for sure. Thank you, Pat. We are just getting started tonight. Still to come, the incredible story of veterans who met in Fort Wayne decades after the Vietnam War and discovered an uncanny connection that created an unbreakable friendship. But first, when servicemen and women come back home, finding a job can be tough. Up next, how a program is working to help veterans get back to work.
I think about all the veterans and everybody that has served, but it also is a proud moment for me just to know that I was there, I served, and I appreciate everybody that did.
Everybody, I'm Adam Brower with Honor Flight Northeast Indiana. We are here on Honor Flight number 34 in Washington, D.C., and I'm very fortunate to be able to be joined here by Marilla Cushman. Marilla, with the Women's Memorial, which is what we affectionately call it, why don't you tell us a little bit about the memorial here and what service you guys bring to this nation?
Sure. This is the only major national memorial to tell the story of women's service to the nation. And few people know that some 3 million women served either with or in the military, beginning with the American Revolution through to today.
Right.
So we do that here at the Women's Memorial. We're right at the gateway to Arlington National Cemetery. And we do that both collectively, very much like a museum with exhibits and things of that sort, videos, books. We have various programs and things of that sort. But we also do a very unique thing, and we say that we tell the individual story of women's service through what we call the register. And we ask women who've served or are serving today or their family members and friends to register this women's service. And what that means is we ask them to send us their picture, tell us a little bit about what they did, their awards and decorations, and it all goes into a database. And we have some 268,000 women's records of service that we've preserved here at the Women's Memorial.
Wonderful. What a wonderful way to connect the public to the individual face and the people of our community and of our nation, and tell their story too through that register and through part of that greater picture of the role that you have all played. Thank you for having us again. It's always a special visit for us on an Honor Flight trip to come to the Women's Memorial, to be able to honor any female veteran that's with us, but also take the opportunity to realize the important role that the females have played in our military as well. We thank you for your constant hospitality and all the hard work that you're doing for our nation.
Well, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the people of Fort Wayne for their support for the Women's Memorial and through the Culver restaurants. We have just been so blessed to have you join us, so thank you very much.
It's our thanks as well. Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank the James Foundation and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices with your hosts, Pat Hoffman and Alyssa Ivinson.
The transition from military to civilian life is challenging for many veterans.
But a bakery in Washington, D.C. is easing that transition one scone at a time. Anna Warnicki explains.
It was a lot, and it shook my system.
Kim DeFiore says when she returned home from Afghanistan, she was facing a more personal battle.
I had a couple suicide attempts while I was at the Pentagon.
After 9 years in the military, she knew it was time to leave.
And so I was like, I don't know if I can go to the conventional workforce.
That's when Kim and her service dog, Thor, enrolled in Dog Tag. Dog Tag is a nonprofit bakery in the heart of Washington, D.C.'s Georgetown neighborhood, serving more than just scones.
What we've created here is really this living business school.
Dog Tag CEO Megan Ogilvie says their mission is to provide a recipe for success for veterans transitioning into the civilian workforce.
We recruit veterans that have service-connected disabilities, military spouses, and military caregivers.
Every week, the veterans spend 6 hours in the bakery and 6 hours in the classroom.
They go through tests and papers and presentations to earn and graduate with a certificate in business administration from Georgetown.
According to the Defense Department, more than 250,000 service members leave the military each year. Christopher Plamp with Hire Heroes says many of them need employment assistance.
They have never made a resume. They've never interviewed for a job. They don't even understand the skills that they gained while they were in the military.
I mean, starting a business and you have no expertise in business, it's hard.
DeFiore graduated from Dog Tag in 2018 and launched her own nonprofit.
We founded Badges United Foundation,
dedicated to boosting overall wellness of first responders and their significant others. For Veterans Voices in Washington, I'm Anna Warnicki.
In Virginia, a Navy veteran is using her military skills to run her own business.
Mallory Rugg dreamed of owning a coffee shop while she served in the Navy. Once she finished, she and a friend got to work. After months of planning, they opened Sweet Beans just this past May. They already have loyal customers, some who are surprised to hear their story.
When they come here and they're surprised by two factors all at once. They say, "Are you the owner?" And we say, "Yes." They're like, "Oh." And then they find out that I was in the military and they're like, "Really? Both of those things?" So it's really funny to have that conversation. And once they find out about those, then it starts this really great conversation.
Mallory is now on a mission to help other women veterans create businesses of their own. Still to come, this year marks 75 years since D-Day. Hear from a Fort Wayne veteran who was one of the thousands of men to storm the beaches of Normandy. Plus,
coming up next on Veterans Voices, we travel to Washington, D.C. with Honor Flight Northeast Indiana. And for some of the veterans on this flight, it was a family affair.
They should honor and remember who keeps this country free, because otherwise we could be under somebody else's rule.
Thank you for watching tonight. Are you a veteran, or do you know a veteran that's hesitating to sign up for their trip to Washington? Listen to these veteran stories.
Well, I had heard of, honor flights. In fact, I heard saw guys that had the same type of caps naturally. They had their emblems on, and saw a couple that were from the 7th and stuff, and I'd say something. And before I ever said anything about honor flight, they would bring it up. They said, "Have you been on the honor flight?" And I said, "No." And every one of them told me the same thing. You get a chance to get on it, don't pass it up, go.
I'm not deserving. Since I was in the Korean War, I also lived through World War II, and I had a lot of friends that I just didn't feel that I had the right to go before they did.
I always felt that the honor flights were set up originally for World War II, and I always had the feeling that somehow or other, as important as the Korean War was, I was serving the country for an effort that was worthwhile. But I always felt it didn't compare somehow to World War II. In the Korean War, even though it might not have been equal in many respects to the battles and the importance of World War II, going on the honor flight was something that I then made up my mind fitted military activity where I was involved.
If you served your time in there, it's what you wanted to do, whether you were drafted or whether you enlisted or no matter what. If they ever get a chance, all you got to do is just get your DD forms out, get the dates off of it you need, fill out the papers and send it in.
Get on the ball and get your name on the list. Don't hesitate. You don't have any worries because of the help that you have provided. It's there, and there's no reason to not go. Even if you can't walk, the facilities were there. They had wheelchairs, and they had nurses and people that could minister to you. There's no reason to hesitate at all about going other than your own ego.
If you haven't already signed up for the honor flight, I can't strongly enough recommend that you do that. For one thing, it's a matter of saying to yourself that the time you spent in service was something that served the country in a way that was badly needed, and now this is an opportunity for you to be recognized for that, and you owe it to yourself and for those who want to tell you that they appreciate what you've done.
And it's well worth it. Any veteran that passes it up, he just lost his marriage. He's lost one of the biggest days of his life. So it's the best thing that I could ever think of.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank the James Foundation and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana.
In September, Honor Flight Northeast Indiana took 87 veterans to Washington, D.C., and I got to go along. It's always a special day for the veterans, but for the Bandor brothers, it was a little extra special, having their family of service all together.
You couldn't want better weather. It's a real nice day here.
Honor Flight 33 to Washington, D.C. was full of stories.
I saw a lot of damage with the Germans. Every place that's supposed to be marked where they weren't allowed to bomb, they bombed it.
It's a completely new situation for war. You know, the booby traps they set up for them, they had no idea what they were getting into.
Reflection.
The Vietnam War, that memorial brought a lot of memories of my oldest brother, David, who was a Marine Corps.
And family.
It's nice to have all the kids and everything with us.
It's always nice to have family with you.
Meet the Bandor brothers, Max, Roy, Frank, Dan, and Randy. Blood brothers who became brothers in arms, all serving in the Navy.
My older brother went in the Second World War, so we just kind of followed him in. When they went in and I was the last one, I thought, well, I might as well go too.
The sense of service, the call to duty for the Bandors is a tradition with deep roots.
Going back to Civil War, we've got veterans. Their dad was in coastal artillery for the U.S. Army before World War I, so there's been a lot of service members coming out of the family. They're still service members many generations later.
Roy and Max passed away in 2000 and 2008. But Frank, Dan, and Randy, along with next-generation Bandor veterans, John, retired from the Navy, and Michael, an Air Force veteran, embarked on a day to D.C. to see the memorials built in their honor.
Beautiful. It's a nice tribute to what the government has done for us, and we appreciate it.
I think it's amazing. I think they did a good job laying it out. It's a good tribute to the Korean veterans.
The first duty station was here in Washington, and to see things again, so that gives me a little thrill.
World War II veteran Frank, along with his sons John and Bob, also had the honor of laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier.
That's a chance of a lifetime to be selected and go through that, so it was very proud for me.
When strangers stopped to thank them,
Thank you for your service.
the Bandors saluted back.
I don't think I'm that big a hero. I'm seeing a lot of them, and I think they're all great.
I'm glad to see all these fellows getting honored like they should have been, especially these guys from Korea and Vietnam and that didn't get the thing that they should have got recognition.
Through the trees and between the memorials in our nation's capital, the bond of the Bandor Brotherhood grew even stronger.
It gives us great pride and honor to support them, to be part of this event with them. So having the togetherness is very special, especially honoring the time that they served and all the veterans that are here. It's just an awesome experience to thank them.
The Bandor brothers didn't just serve their country, they served their community. Frank, Randy, and Dan were all also Fort Wayne police officers. Another family of veterans on that honor flight, the Bartons. Korean War Navy veteran Robert Barton and his 3 veteran children, Scott, John, and Jan. Jan got a special surprise honor on the trip as well. She was inducted into the Women's Memorial Registry.
I had no idea that was even here. This is my first time seeing the Women's Memorial. So to see something like that is just amazing. And all because Dad started it.
Jan served in the Air Force as a Morse code operator and radio systems analyst. She and her dad also got to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Arlington.
And Honor Flight 34 was in October. That trip took 81 veterans to D.C. 4 of the veterans had that special honor of laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. And one of those veterans has a special WANE 15 connection.
That doesn't happen every day. It is truly a magnificent thing that come about, which doesn't all come only once in a lifetime.
I've been trying to get him to come for a while, and I said, Dad, you're going to have a great time. He said, maybe we'll see. And then when we finally got here, the big smile came on his face. He's like, this is going to be nice.
And that latest trip included veterans from World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Cold War. Well, a staple of Honor Flight homecomings is a special welcome home from Dottie Mac. Up next, how she's made it her life's mission to honor veterans.
It's just a quiet time to reflect on the many lives that were lost, so we can enjoy the freedoms and the country that we enjoy today.
We're at the Air Force Memorial on Honor Flight number 34. I'm with Max Robinson, Honor Flight Vice President, and also an Air Force veteran. Many of the correspondence that we receive involve how our waiting list works. We recently had a chance to sit down and talk through that process.
The waiting list is determined by when the veteran served. World War II vets go first. They'll go on the next flight, and right now a Korean vet would probably go on the next flight as well. They're older, they served earlier, and then after that it's Cold War and then Vietnam. I'll give you an example about how a veteran might jump ahead of somebody else on the waiting list. If I submitted an application today, I'm a Cold War Vietnam veteran. I would jump ahead on the waiting list of a Vietnam vet because I served before they did. And that's one example of how a veteran might lose their spot. They don't lose their spot, they just grow on the list. It's a little longer wait for them. When they submit an application, if it's a paper application, it's reviewed by our nursing people, and it's reviewed by them to make sure that everything is okay medically. If not, they will make telephone calls to the veteran or a guardian to determine that. and then it's reviewed by me to make sure everything's okay, and then I will send a card that tells the veteran that we have received their application. There's no confirmation of a flight or anything like that. You should never be discouraged because of the waiting list. We take 340 veterans per year. We take 85 veterans on each flight, and we take 4 flights a year. So that waiting list moves fairly quickly when you look at it from that standpoint. Any veteran, in spite of their health situation, should not hesitate to make application, and then let our people and their physician evaluate them from there. It's easily been done by many, many veterans. We're able to accommodate almost every situation, so don't be reluctant to make an application because of your health situation. Let our people and your physician make that determination.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank the James Foundation and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana.
Well, our next story is a love story, a story about love for this country and the men and women who have fought to protect it. A story about a romance that lives on even though one of the partners has passed away. In her own unique way, Dottie Mac has spent her lifetime honoring veterans, with one very special veteran always by her side.
I have worn black, nothing but black, for 18 years.
Dottie Mac has been through a lot in life, and her appreciation for veterans goes back as long as she can remember.
My family has always been with the military. All the guys went in the service, and so we just honored the service, and we couldn't understand why people didn't realize how wonderful that was, what they were doing for us.
Her husband, Paul, joined the Navy after the attack on Pearl Harbor.
My husband never thought he was going to come home. He didn't think about what was going to happen after the war.
Paul was one of the lucky ones. He came home and married Dottie, lovebirds for over 50 years until a sudden heart attack took his life 18 years ago.
Never had a heart problem. And so I was in shock, and I had to go to counseling. And the counselor said, well, you have to find a purpose, something to go on. And I said, how can I do that? And I said something to make her laugh. And I said, I found my purpose. I want to do something to make people smile, and I want to do something that he can come along with me. It's a guardian angel. He's with me. I wear this everywhere.
Everywhere is right. Dottie is a karaoke legend in this town.
I don't want anybody to leave without feeling better about themselves. I don't care about me. I feel good about myself.
And what makes her feel best is welcoming veterans home on Honor Flight.
And I read their name tag off and their name, and then a roar goes up. To me, I've always felt that way, and to see other people feel that way is just wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, dear.
Treat to get to know her. Dottie takes great pride at how big the Honor Flight Welcome Home has become. She said there were less than 500 people when she first performed 11 years ago. Now a few thousand people show up to welcome our heroes home from their trip.
Wonderful story. Well, from singing to dancing, a Virginia World War II Navy veteran stays young at heart with a bit of weekly toe tapping. Carrie O'Brien has his story.
With every step and every turn, this dancing 92-year-old World War II veteran is proving age is just a number.
It keeps me active, you know, my legs moving and so forth.
Watch out, old Angelo is back. Watch out now. Because every Thursday evening, you can find Angelo Rico dancing in the deli at Paddo's in Innsbruck.
I found the dream.
The Navy vet says he's always loved to dance.
That was my career in the Navy.
That was your career in the Navy?
Yeah, I used to dance a lot when I was ashore. That's why the lady is a tramp.
I'm here twice a month, and it's a wonderful place. This is a veteran outfit, and here there's a lot of veterans.
Thank you so much for your service.
But Angelo's kind of special. He is like Fred Astaire, and the girls love him.
I'm hearing the ladies love your dancing. Are you a ladies' man?
No, I don't project myself as a ladies' man. I like to dance, and they're very hospitable that way.
So, of course, I had to ask, could I have the next dance? Would you dance with me to this?
Carrie and Angelo.
This vet can certainly twirl me off my feet. For Veterans Voices, I'm Carrie O'Brien.
I don't think many ladies say no to a dance from him.
I would say not.
Up next, a Fort Wayne World War II veteran was one of the men who stormed the beaches of Normandy. He shares his story looking back at D-Day 75 years later.
And how families of those who serve find a special kind of camaraderie. We'll introduce you to the Blue Star Mothers of America when we come back.
It means a lot to me because if you think about what it stands for, and the fact that a lot of people give their lives to make this state a wonderful place. And a lot of people don't want to recognize that.
We are at the Veterans Memorial National Shrine in Fort Wayne to talk about a little-known program that Honor Flight offers called the Flags of Our Heroes. Just as this shrine is a memorial to those that have served our country, Flags of Our Heroes is one that honors them in a very special way. With me is Brent Roddy, one of our Honor Flight board members, who oversees this program. Brent, would you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, Adam. Flags of Our Heroes is the quieter side of Honor Flight that's near and dear to my heart. When a veteran passes before they've had a chance to go on our honor flight and visit their memorial, we will take their flag to their memorial and present it there.
Now, what if the Veterans Memorial doesn't exist yet, or we don't visit it during one of our trips to Washington?
We will still take the flag with us on an upcoming flight. We will display the flag at Arlington National Cemetery, a very fitting and honorable place to display any flag. When we arrive home for the welcome home ceremony, we will present the flag back to the family.
Now, how does a friend or family member get their loved one's memorial flag with us on one of the trips?
We would ask that they go to our website and sign up. We only take 3 flags per trip, and when it is time for their flag to go, we will notify them.
Thank you, Brent, for overseeing this very special program. It's called Flags of Our Heroes, and if your friend or family member didn't get a chance to take their honor flight before they passed, we would love to take their memorial flag with us. Please visit our webpage shown on the screen below and sign up for this opportunity. The Flags of Our Heroes program is just another way that we want to say thank you to our veterans' families. Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank the James Foundation and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana continues. Now here's your hosts, Pat Hoffman and Alyssa Ivinson.
June 6, 1944, thousands of servicemen stormed the beaches of Normandy, a day that would become an infamous moment in World War II.
Al Edwards was one of those brave men. On the 75th anniversary of D-Day, he shared his story and some poems with WANE 15's Sierra Tufts.
He is getting old and paunchy, and his hair is falling fast. And he sat around the VFW telling stories of the past.
A poem written by World War II veteran Al Edwards. Edwards served in the U.S. Navy through the 111th Seabees crew, which stormed the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944.
Went in when I was 18, I got out when I was 22, I was 19 about the time.
When Edwards was told it was time to go and go across the English Channel.
Load up, boys, we're not coming back. Well, you sit there and wonder.
Wondering what would happen next as Edwards' battalion approached Omaha Beach.
But they had thousands of ships over there. You could use them for stepping stones. You could go across that channel, you could almost walk across.
I asked Al if he realized this day would change the course of World War II.
Yes, I thought I was going to get killed. I really did. It was terrible. I come so close, and, like if you're standing here, and here's part of this protection you got, and there's a bullet hole right there, your life is saved by 6 inches.
Edwards lived through D-Day, scooping up a jar of sand from that very day. Now he reminisces through the memories of D-Day with a sense of humor.
This is how I looked when I was in. I was not too bad looking fella. I've had an enjoyable life. I'm glad I got to serve my country. I'm sorry that I had to see so many people die, but I didn't ask to go to the war in the first place.
Edwards would have liked to go back to the beaches of Normandy on the 75th anniversary to do one thing.
I would like to go back and just be there. I like to kneel and say a prayer by myself. And I'm going to say, I sit and think, you are the real heroes. You're here to stay. Just a simple headline in the paper that might say, a country is in mourning, a soldier died today.
And that was Sierra Tufts reporting. You can hear the full version of that poem he wrote in this story on WANE.com.
When someone joins the military in a way, their family does too. It's a camaraderie of another kind, a sense of community found in hometowns across the country. Amy Simpson shares the stories of the Blue Star Moms.
This group of women didn't sign up to serve their country, but their sons and daughters did.
You come together here and we listen to each other and we get it. And it's just that understanding that isn't often provided out in the real world.
This is just one of more than 200 chapters of the Blue Star Mothers of America. Here in Virginia's capital city, they call themselves the Blue Star Families of Richmond. Stephanie Sill says it's a sisterhood.
My oldest son, Joshua, is actually a veteran now of the Army. He served about 8 years.
Her son's deployment made her appreciate other moms who can relate.
He plays with bombs for a living, so pretty much every day was a stressful day for me.
The group gets together all year long, packing treats for troops, each December decorating a holiday tree at the Virginia War Memorial. Susan Holcher is one of the newest members of the group.
I joined the group and immediately they sent a care package to my daughter.
Right now, her daughter is deployed in the Middle East.
Every day you say a prayer that she's going to be safe and everybody that she's serving with is going to be safe.
These moms say they're filled with emotions while supporting their sons and daughters, worried during deployments, but pride to have a child in uniform.
My kid went and joined the military. Well, I can do my part here in my hometown by taking care of those who also served.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Amy Simpson.
Blue Star Mothers of America has chapters all across the country. Type in your city in bluestarmothers.org to find the group closest to you. Still to come, an Army veteran is making it his mission to help other vets get service dogs. But first, an incredible story of a military bond discovered decades later. 2 Vietnam veterans meet in Fort Wayne and realize they had more in common than they could have ever imagined. Stay with us.
I usually go to the Legion and we put flags up. I think they ought to think about all the people who didn't come home.
Another question that we often receive is about our funding and how much does a trip cost. First, if you don't know a lot about our Honor Flight program, we make 4 trips to Washington each year. And in 2019, each one of those trips cost just under $100,000. We do receive our funding in a number of different ways. First, we're a grassroots organization at heart. We receive many individual donations from people like you, either through our website, memorials, or as loose donations at one of the many fundraisers in our area. We also have organizations that partner with Honor Flight for fundraising through activities like dinners, breakfasts, or even a golf outing. But we've been blessed with corporate donations through one just like this. Another option for fundraising for Honor Flight is corporate donations, and I am joined tonight with Tim Duncan here from Big City Cars.
Thank
Tim,
you.
This is the third weekend as part of the Fort Wayne Comets that you've done some fundraising for Honor Flight.
We have. So 3 years ago when we started sponsoring Military Week, and we had an opportunity to pick a charity, a military charity that we felt that coincided with our values, and we did a lot of research, and a lot of people kept saying Honor Flight. And so after I got a hold of Dennis, which I learned later that I actually knew, I had an opportunity to sit down with him and kind of really understand the focus of Honor Flight. And as a result of the family values that we share at Big City Cars and the focus of trying to support the families and the veterans, it really was a match made in heaven. And as a result of it, 3 years later, here we are one more night.
To be clear, we are a non-for-profit organization and receive no government funding. And all of us Honor Flight staff are volunteers because we want you to be comfortable knowing that any dollar that you give to us goes to sending a veteran to Washington. It's because of you and our generous community that we've been blessed with 34 trips to Washington. And with your continued support, there will be many more to come. We can't say thank you enough for supporting Honor Flight and our local veterans. If you would like to learn more about donating, please visit our website. But for now, back to the program. Northeast Indiana would like to thank the James Foundation and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana.
As thousands of Americans did, Daryl Jaggers and Dennis Sutton served in Vietnam, then tried to get back to life as best they could when they got home. They never imagined a work meeting would one day transport them back to the jungle and forge a bond of friendship and healing.
Oh, good. How about you? I'm good. I'm good.
Inside the Trouble Riverside Cafe, two old friends catch up.
5 days a week, yeah.
Dennis Sutton, a lawyer, and Daryl Jaggers, a banker, met as work contacts in 1993.
I was getting acquainted with different people we worked with.
When a simple question over lunch,
He asked me, well, what do you like to do in your spare time?
opened a door to the past.
I fly helicopters for the Army National Guard. They said, oh, did you fly in Vietnam?
An unlikely link
I said, yeah, I did.
dating decades earlier. The Vietnam War, America's boys fighting in the jungle.
We just went there and tried to do our duties. I learned early on we weren't there to win the war. So I lost 34 friends there.
Daryl joined the Army in 1967.
I knew my draft notice was going to be mailed to me. I found out that I could enlist for flight school and learn how to fly helicopters.
He piloted the Chinooks CH-47s, transporting soldiers or supplies, food, weapons, ammunition.
We did everything. Yeah, we carried in live people, we carried out bodies. We did what we had to support the guys on the ground.
Denny was one of those guys on the ground.
We were called grunts. We humped the bush. We were in the mountains. We were in the jungle. This is 1970. The idea there was to seek out the enemy and destroy. But we rarely found them. The only time we made contact was when Charlie wanted to make contact with us, quite frankly.
Denny had been drafted.
It was in the first day of law school at IU Bloomington, and my mom called and said, son, you're in the Army.
To soldiers like Denny, the Chinooks Daryl flew weren't just helicopters, they were hope.
Yeah, the thump of the propellers is what all grunts really look forward to, because normally it was bringing supplies or might be a medevac or something like that, but normally it was something good. Taking out the jungle for a few weeks, I mean, it was a welcome thump.
Then May 1970, Denny's unit, the 4th Infantry Division,
And my ears perked up because I knew that was where I flew as well.
got to turn the tables and help the helicopter crew.
When we went, we found a Chinook which was badly damaged and secured it. And we were there for a few days, I'm sure.
I said, yeah, it was 35 miles southeast of Pleiku. in the jungle, and the helicopter was destroyed, but nobody was killed. He said, "How'd you know that?" I said, "That was our Chinook."
I mean, I thought, how can that possibly be?
This is a small world.
Decades later, in casual conversation, Denny and Daryl learned their service didn't just take them both to the other side of the world. It was the exact same spot.
We found out amazing that we connected after, from an incident that was 11,000 miles away. Early May 1970, we could have both an impact from that and both remember that so well. Now, the pilot was a good friend of mine, and I'd actually ridden on that Chinook 2 weeks before.
For him to be able to relate me being at that site, and I can describe exactly how the Chinook looked, and he said I knew it, and that was really, really incredible.
Even though their paths crossed, the two don't recall actually meeting in Vietnam.
I did fly a few more missions after that, up in that area, so he may have ridden in one of my helicopters, but I always wondered what happened to these guys. So meeting somebody that was there at the same time, it just made me feel great.
What started as a business relationship became a friendship that helped heal old wounds.
After you've served in combat together, even though we weren't side by side, but we were there at the same time and in the same theater, it's a brotherhood that means a lot to every one of us.
There's a commonality because of maybe what things that had happened and you've gone through. So it's a pleasure to be able to talk to another veteran. It was really pleasurable because we had been similarly situated and through a similar thing. And the other part of it, he's a great guy. So I made a great friend with him.
Daryl now lives in Indianapolis, but the two are still great friends and keep in close contact.
Remarkable story. A veteran in Florida may be one of the last living Buffalo soldiers. Now he is helping keep the legacy of his fellow soldiers alive. Up next, hear his vivid memories of Pearl Harbor and his duties in the 9th Cavalry.
Time of reflection. Basically, again, we've got a long history of military members and the family and thinking about them at that time and what they went through before our time came and then who comes after us.
Fantastic day we had.
With the welcome home, what I tell most people what it's like is that it's an experience like you'll never see anyplace else. The joy that you see in the eyes of a lot of these veterans as they come back with the crowd that we have here in Fort Wayne and the tears that come to a lot of their eyes is quite memorable. The crowd is made up of just about everything you can imagine, young, old, all different nationalities. People come for different reasons. There's people that have families in the military or have families involved with the honor flight. There's people that come just because they support what the military does or has done, and they want to come out and show their gratitude for the service that these people put in, whether it be World War II, Korea, Cold War, Vietnam, wherever it might be. They are very much behind the efforts they put forward. A lot of the families will have pictures of the loved ones that are basically on the flight in their service uniforms. We also have a World War II dance band that performs on a regular basis in the middle of our greeting line, basically to play songs of the era as well as patriotic songs to keep the crowd entertained. Also provide a personal welcome home to each and every vet that comes off the plane from the standpoint of stating their name, their rank, and what war they served in or what conflict they served in. The most touching thing that still strikes me is particularly with some of the flights that had a lot of World War II veterans on it, the perception is that people that came home from World War II all got ticker tape parades, but the vast majority of them came home and basically led a normal life or tried to lead a normal life and went back to work or their families. And when they come down the line and see thousands of people wanting to shake their hand, applauding for them or playing music, the tears that would come to their eyes are probably the most memorable thing that I can remember, is they were so happy and had so much energy from the standpoint of what the crowd was doing for them that they were crying with tears of joy from the standpoint that this is the return that they never got 60, 70, 80 years ago. So.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank the James Foundation and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices with your hosts, Pat Hoffman and Alyssa Ivinson.
At 97 years old, Steve Lewis is perhaps the last living Buffalo soldier.
And his legacy will now be part of a new documentary. Rod Carter has his story.
Retired Army Corporal Steve Lewis is living history.
I was in 12th grade when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
The 97-year-old Manatee County veteran vividly remembers the day that changed America forever.
It was on Sunday. And I didn't, so it says Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and we didn't have, during that time, we didn't have no TVs. We had a radio.
Although after Pearl Harbor, Lewis enrolled at Florida A&M College in Tallahassee, now FAMU, a country at war meant studies took a back seat.
Every man in college had to be in the enlisted reserve corps.
Eventually, he was assigned to the 9th Cavalry, one of two black cavalries known as the Buffalo Soldiers. The all-African-American groups started during the Civil War. Their service, though, lasted until 1948, when President Harry S. Truman integrated the military. And by the early 1950s, they were gone.
And we didn't know a thing about no Buffalo Soldiers in the Army. Okay. We never heard it.
Mr. Lewis may be the last living Buffalo soldier around. He remembers his duties well.
You man was assigned a horse, and you had to take the horse. When you're ready to go out, you ride the horse, bring him in, wash him down, clean him up, feed him, then you go eat.
Ralph Barnett is putting together a documentary about the Buffalo Soldiers.
In spite of the huge swath of American history that they cover and their importance in American history, the story has never really been told.
Mr. Lewis is going to be a big part of that film.
They don't give it the publicity it needs.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Rod Carter.
Because Lewis was college educated at the time, he was also a morning reports keeper in the Army. After his military service, Lewis became a teacher.
Up next on Veterans Voices, service dogs can be life-saving companions for many veterans. See how one Army veteran is using lessons learned through his struggles to help others.
It means to me that all the people have suffered and passed away and all this stuff, so it means a lot to me.
Hey, Curtis, did you sign up for the honor flight?
No, I've been too busy.
Man, let me tell you what you've been missing. They got us all together for a luncheon where we could meet the other veterans. And then on flight date, when we arrived at the Air Guard base, my guardian and I were checked in. Then we sat down and ate with everyone that was going to be on the bus with us that day. Then they took us out to the flight line and the plane. It was just an awesome sight to see the huge flag as we drove under it. Also, everyone out there to greet us and see us off. All the smiles and laughs and singing while we were on the plane made the flight seem like it was over in a heartbeat. I've never had that much fun on a plane before. When we arrived in D.C., there were all these people to greet us and make us feel welcome. Then we got on the buses and watched everyone get out of our way while we toured around D.C., heading to the memorials. It was neat to see the families that had met the other veterans there, and the random people that had stopped for a photo or a school group that just came up to us to talk or shake our hands. Then we went to other memorials and also honored the women that were on the trip with us. I also got to see the tomb of the unknown soldier. It was so unbelievable, nothing like it when I got home back then. Curtis, where you going?
I'm going to get my application for an honor flight.
If you haven't signed up for your honor flight like my friend Curtis here, please visit our website where you can sign up online for your free trip. Or stop by your local American Legion or VFW post where they will have a paper application for you. With my friends Curtis and Jerry and all veterans watching tonight, thank you very much for your service. Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank the James Foundation and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana continues. Now here's your hosts, Pat Hoffman and Alyssa Ivinson.
In this next story, we meet a man who is using his struggles to help others.
Laura Queso shows us how a service dog saved an Army veteran's life time and time again.
There you go.
At 140 pounds,
There you go, baby.
with the stature of a soldier,
Come on, Duke.
this is Duke,
Down, Duke. Come on.
a gentle giant best friend, a battle buddy for retired Army Sergeant Toby Yarbrough.
At the beginning, I didn't want one. I was like, I'm not disabled, I'm not blind, I'm not deaf, I don't need one.
But he credits Duke for saving his life after he was severely wounded during a 2002 deployment. He was on a mission to recover a front end loader in Afghanistan.
In the process of repairing it, it shifted, and when it did, it pinned me down. And when it did, you had over 2 tons fly on your back.
In that moment, everything faded to black. Alive but paralyzed from the neck down, he broke his back in 3 places, suffered a traumatic brain injury, robbing him of his short-term memory. He medically retired in 2003, struggled to overcome PTSD and seizures. He returned home and shelled out $40,000 for the very animal that would save him time and time again.
And he was trained that with, he nudged me and I felt my medication in his mouth, I knew I was having a seizure. This is one of 7 different magazines that Duke's in.
We met the duo just months before Duke's passing. They went on a cruise, traveled to Belize, walked on a catwalk for charity.
Veterans need all the help they can get.
That's why Toby has made it his mission to match veterans with service dogs. Doctors, health specialists, even vets from across the country team up with Toby to find the right service dog. It's the life he wants other veterans to live. Today,
On the table, meds.
Sasha is Toby's service dog.
Harness. But it's my story. And it's a story that people need to be heard. Your girl.
And for him, Sasha and Duke are not only man's best friend, but the buddies fighting the battle long after war.
Unseen, unheard, but always near. Still loved, still missed, and always very dear.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Laura Queso.
Toby wrote a story about how Duke impacted his life called A Quiet Healing. That book is now an award-winning documentary. Up next on Veterans Voices, a special delivery 32,000 feet in the sky will take you to mail call on board an honor flight.
Honoring all the veterans served, sacrifice, and still serving today. We look upon them and we think of them and hope that they come home safe.
We hope that you've enjoyed tonight's program called Veterans Voices. Veterans, if you've already signed up and enjoyed your trip, thank you. If you haven't signed up yet, your time to do so is now. This is a special part of the program where we are ready to say a thank you to you veterans. Kids, what do we say?
Thank you for your service.
And now here are a few more greetings just for you.
Hello veterans, just wanted to say thank you for sacrificing your youth so that I can raise my sons in peace and security. God bless you all, you're all heroes.
Hi, I'm Jane, I'm from Tennessee. Came to Washington, D.C. today to see veterans, thank our veterans from all of our wars. I'm here with my husband who is a veteran, retired Army. I was here to see my father who is a veteran and retired Army who is buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Thank you for everybody who has given their service and the ultimate sacrifice to ensure that we are able to live free.
Thank you to my father, Charles Canning, Korean War Seabees.
I want to take this opportunity to thank all veterans for your service. It is truly appreciated. Hoorah!
On behalf of all of us here at American Airlines,
we'd like to thank you, veterans,
for your sacrifice and for your service to our great nation. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
My name is Samantha Kuhn. I work for Paulding Putnam Electric Cooperative, and I just want to give a huge thanks to all of our veterans for all the sacrifices they've made to make this country great.
Thank you, Mom, for being our favorite Air Force veteran.
I just want to give a huge shout out to all of our veterans. Thank you for everything that you have done and continue to do for us. I also want to give a huge shout out to my grandpa Ed. He is the biggest reason that I decided to join the military in the first place and continue on the family tradition. So again, thank you for everything that you've done and continue to do for us.
Thank you, Grandpa Choo-Choo, for your service.
Tony Giles, we're at the Air Force Memorial in Arlington, Virginia. Thanks to the veterans. You're welcome anytime.
I just want to say I'm Officer Patrick, and usually I'm the head of the snake as we convoy around this entire city. So I want to thank you guys for coming down, visiting us, and seeing all of my federal monuments and memorials. And we look forward to seeing you guys sometime soon.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank the James Foundation and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana.
While military members are serving, mail call is a special time, a little bit of home. On the honor flight, the veterans get to hear their names called and get a bundle of envelopes one more time, opening a little bit of gratitude from family, friends, and even strangers.
Earl Broadbeck.
I just wanted to send a note of hello and to let you know I am thinking about you. I would like to express to you today that you, in my opinion, are the true definition of hero. Even though I don't know you, I am filled with the utmost respect and admiration for you, and appreciate your amazing and great service you rendered to our nation. Your outstanding service, sacrifices, and bravery have not gone unnoticed. And I just want to say thank you.
Larry Jones.
And that's our show. Thank you again for joining us. You can see all these stories as well as others on the Veterans Voices page on WANE.com.
On behalf of all of us at WANE 15, thank you to all our veterans. Good night.